Today's topic is 5 hard truths why you are not getting more sales. These are common trends that I have seen. I could say working with hundreds of sellers over my career, but it's really just 5 hard truths as to why I have struggled, is what it comes down to. Because I have found that the things I struggle most with commonly are struggle points for a lot of people. So I'm going to dive into the 5 common themes that I have seen amongst myself and many of my seller friends. Number one, and probably the most painful to accept when you look in the mirror, is the fact that you are just simply not consistent. Anyone else? Or is that just me? You have not been consistent. And these points are going to be slightly different depending on the platform. eBay, for example, consistency means you are consistently sourcing, which I don't think that's any of our problems because we all have death piles. So I think we can all agree we all have sourcing under wraps. That is good to go. The problem is listing consistently, and that really comes down to like what works for me is if I'm not following a schedule, that's where my consistency just goes out the window. So for me in eBay world, listing and photoing consistently is what keeps me on track. And obviously, this is what gets more sales. eBay has come out time and time again and said that we want consistent daily listings. It is better to do 5 listings per day than to shove 25 or 30 of them just on Fridays. What you can do is if you are on a tight schedule, family, full time job, all that stuff, if you're on a schedule, what typically a lot of people will do is if you have one dedicated day, whether it's a Saturday or like a 4 hour chunk after work, what you could do is you could just batch all your photos together and you can do all of your listings all up front. And then you can schedule them out 3 or 5 at a time, whatever number you want to focus on to be listed throughout the week. So for me, consistency is hands down the biggest reason when I have a lack of sales going on in the eBay world. Now, when we're talking about something like Amazon or Walmart, which is typically more arbitrage based, what consistency looks like in that world is going to be actually being consistent with the sourcing and the shipping aspect. I think the shipping aspect is a huge one. The death piles that can occur in the Amazon and Walmart world are typically piles of stuff that we have bought and we're not taking the time to just do the fulfillment and ship those out. Unless you're doing seller fulfilled, then you've got to list it and stay consistent with that. But I'm talking about with like FBA or WFS, following some type of weekly shipment is going to be probably the best route that you can go. A lot of us, including myself, enjoy doing one shipment per week. And what I typically like to do, especially now that I'm back in full time selling again, where I'm actively sourcing and listing and shipping and doing all this, what I like to do in the Walmart platform, not focusing on Amazon at all right now. So just focusing on Walmart. What I like to do is I'm buying products, listing them immediately. Literally, I don't leave the store. So I bring all my stuff out to the car and I list it right then and there. So it's just listed, ready to go. And then I'm allowed to go to the next store. So I'm listing stuff immediately as seller fulfilled. If it's not selling by the end of that week, typically the following week on a Monday or Tuesday, whatever lines up, that's when I'm going to do just one big WFS batch. And then I just rinse and repeat. So I get a fresh batch of newly listed seller fulfilled a week later. If it hasn't sold, I like to ship it in that way. So staying consistent, hands down. I could just not even talk about the other 4 bullet points here. If you are not following some type of photo listing or shipping schedule for yourself, depending on the platform, you're missing out. I can promise you, if you just tweak that, I'm not saying you have to follow some crazy system or schedule here, but if you just tighten up the consistency without doing anything else, I promise you, you're going to see more sales creeping in, especially because we've all just become glorified hoarders in a lot of cases. We have storage units full and garages full and spare bedrooms full of inventory. If you just get consistent, it doesn't take much, guys, especially for those of you that have death piles. If we're talking about an eBay world, if you literally just go pick out 3 items per day, literally just go grab 3 items out of your death pile, sit down, It will take 15 minutes. Do the photos real quick, get them listed, and then you're done. Do that every single day. Just pick out 3 items out of that pile. Don't here's what I would recommend. The times that I've been motivated to go list for my death pile, I would literally go in and try to cherry pick out what I wanted to list, right? If I want to list the pair of shoes because I don't want to deal with the beauty product, like don't do that. You're just wasting time and mental energy. Go in, grab 3 items, doesn't matter what they are, they're eventually all going to get listed. So just grab the first 3 that you can grab, get them listed. It will take less than 15 minutes in most cases. So I would highly recommend that is what you start with if you're like, hey, I've got a lot of extra stuff. I've got a death pile. I have no consistency in life right now. Start small. These small daily wins are ultimately what are going to lead up to bigger successes going on. Number 2, you are struggling getting more sales because you are acting like a storage unit. Let that one sink in because I have definitely been guilty of this more than once, more than twice, more than 10 times. You're acting like a storage unit. One, the death pile. You got to get that stuff listed. If you want to truly just make an impact on that death pile, you schedule out sometime in the next week that you have a dedicated like 4, 6, 8 hours where you don't do anything but work on that death pile. Just get it done, get it listed. One, that's going to clear up a lot of mental energy and space for you. 2, it's physically going to clean out some room. And 3, it's going to allow you to get that huge batch of fresh stuff up and listed and selling. You cannot sell this stuff if it's not listed. You might have 10, 20, $30,000 worth of inventory chilling. It's not going to make you a dime until it's listed. So there's no reason not to just take a dedicated day and just get that done. The second part of that is you are acting like a storage unit in the sense of whether it's listed on eBay or it's in Amazon or it's in Walmart. If you are trying to price a few dollars too high just to squeeze out a few bucks extra of profit, that ends up meaning that you are holding on to products way longer than you need to. You are not a storage unit. You got to flip that stuff. So that is one way to increase your cash flow too, especially if you are newer or if you are limited on funds and capital, then you really have to focus on just quick turnover on your inventory. Once you have way more capital to play with, you can do some long-term buys and price high and wait for the right buyer at the right time months down the road. But for now, if you are struggling with having more capital or you're sick and tired of stuff sitting for 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months, a year, you've got to drop the price. You've got to make better titles, get better photos on there. You got to do what you got to do to turn that over, get that cash back and reinvest it. And that's how you start to build a rock solid cash flow. So stop acting like a storage unit. That's one of my biggest things I've had to learn over the years, especially when I was newer, those first 2, 3, 4 years. I would sit on inventory. My average turnaround on Amazon inventory must have been 4, 5, 6 months because I was just pricing $5 too high on something because I wanted to make a $10 profit and it would just chill for months. Versus if I just took the $5 profit, but I was able to flip it within 30 days, that would have saved my butt many times because I ran into bottlenecks with cash like everyone does. We're in a beautiful business model where you will run out of cash very quickly as you scale up if you're not focusing on that quicker turnover on your inventory. Now, if you have collector's items, antiques, vintage stuff that just does not have a huge demand, that will take longer to sell. Those may have much higher dollar price points. For example, you guys probably know by now, I am very much in the world of higher ticket items in the retro space. So vintage action figures that are still sealed in the box. I've got retro video games that are still sealed and they're graded as well. So I've sold games that are worth $3,000, $5,000. My most expensive game I sold was $16,000 for one game. That is not a quick flip category. So I have to be willing to just wait it out on those types of things. So when I say focus on quick turning inventory, I'm not talking about those types of categories. We're talking about just the bread and butter, everyday type of items that you guys are thrifting, whether it's just a, basic t-shirt, whether you're doing shoes, beauty stuff. Focus on quicker turnover on your inventory. If you're used to getting a $8 to $10 profit, be okay making $5 or $6 if it means you're going to be turning that over a lot quicker, especially if you are in the arbitrage space where you have quantity. Now, I'm willing to price something a little bit higher and wait a little bit longer if I have just one unit. But if I have 5, 10, 20 units, I am definitely in the mindset these days where I'm willing to take a much slimmer margin on my profit if it means I'm able to flip all 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever you get a hold of. So the more quantity that you have, typically the slimmer margins they get, and you're turning that over a lot quicker. If you look at any of these larger sellers that are doing $100,000 a year, 250 a year, a million a year, they're not getting huge margins anymore. They're not making 25, 30, 35% on their margin. They're typically doing 10, 12, 15% margin because they're just flipping so much volume at that point. Number three, and this comes from looking at my own eBay store over the years and working with hundreds of sellers over the years. Big one, you have poor quality photos and titles. The world of eBay is a different beast than the whole arbitrage onto Walmart and Amazon. With eBay, typically as a customer, if I'm looking through and I'm scrolling, I'm looking for a great photo and a great price. The title is important. I would say the photo and the price are more important because you got to be competitive with great products, and people need to clearly see that photo. Like we've all seen photos where it's feet in the background on a kitchen floor, that kind of stuff. You want to do your best to try to have a clear up close photo. Now, this gets into the topic of, do I have a pure white background that's good for the Google algorithm, or do I have a wood frame background like you see some shoe sellers have? The background conversation isn't as important anymore. There's plenty of very successful eBay sellers that use whatever background they want to use, but you want to make sure you have like good. If you're not using the square mode on your phone, make sure it's in square mode. Get that product to be up as close as you can to fill all the space. If you're taking a photo and the product looks this big and it's got all this white space around it, try to fill that up as much as you can, and also take more photos as well. If I'm a buyer, because I do buy off eBay myself, just as a collector, I buy Ninja Turtle stuff and Power Rangers and that kind of stuff. I hate when I'm scrolling through and I find a listing where it's like, hey, I want that product. It's a decent price, but there's only two photos, front and back. I'm like, I want to see the bottom. I want to see the top. I want to see all the different angles. So if you're adding at least 6, 7, 8, 10 photos, depending on the type of product, especially if there's flaws, take as many photos as you can. That's going to help your listings as well. And that's going to help your turnover on those. And that gets into the pricing too. Again, if if you have a pair of Nike shoes and there's 50 different people selling that same shoe and everyone is priced at $35, if you also price at $35, you have to have other reasons for people to click on your listing. Because if everyone is at the same price, then it's okay. You either have to have way better photos or you have to have a better title, which is bumping you up to the top of the search on page one. You have to have different things in place. But if I price at, let's say, $32.95, and I have a great photo and I have a great title, there's a fairly good chance I'm going to be making that sale versus all of the other ones. Number 4, this is second to staying consistent. I probably should have put this number 2. You are not buying in demand items. I'm going to say something, and this is something that I once heard when I was new, and it clicked probably a year too late because I had death piles of just garbage inventory that was only worth $12 and it wasn't going to move. It's this: do not buy things just because they are cheap and you think that they will sell. I'm going to say that one again. Stop buying things just because they're cheap, even if it's a quarter at a garage sale or $1 at a thrift store. Stop buying things that are cheap that you are putting your own personal opinion to. Well, it's only $1. It's a good looking shirt. I think it might sell for 20. If you go look at the actual data on eBay, same thing with Amazon and Walmart. If you're buying stuff that's not in demand, it's going to sit. It doesn't matter how cheaply you got it. You could have got it for free. If I got this mouse for free and I listed it, but nobody wants to buy it, it doesn't matter if I price it at $100 or $5. Nobody's going to want this item. And so many times I've seen this with my own buying habits back in the day. I trained my mom on how to, she has a Goodwill bins right down the road, and she went off the deep end with Mercari and eBay. So they are making a pretty good income doing that now. But I showed up at her apartment when I took a trip here from Texas back to Oregon one time after I taught her. It had been like 2 or 3 months. And I went back up there after teaching her. She had bins and bins and bins of garbage inventory because it was at the bins and it was cheap. Those little action figures that aren't worth more than $5, she would just tell me, well, it was only like a quarter if you did it by weight. Doesn't matter. If you want to be a successful seller, you have to be purchasing things that people want to buy. It doesn't matter how great the item is that you think it is, or it doesn't matter how cheaply you got it. If it's not in demand by the customers, there's no point in even listing it. And this is what's the beautiful part about all three major platforms, Amazon, eBay, and Walmart, is the fact that we have data. Walmart doesn't give us much, but we still have data. We can see how many reviews are on a product. We can see how many people are selling. Are there pro sellers on there? WFS. That shows that these have probably sold and there's some demand there. But if you're looking at a listing on Walmart that's got no reviews, there's one seller, they're priced at like $12, probably not moving that quickly. Then you look at eBay, we have a little bit more to go by there. So eBay has this beautiful sold comps. It has Terapeak built right into it now. So if you click on the research button, you can look at the history of a title, of a brand, whatever you're looking at. So the beautiful part with that is you can now filter by sold comps and see exactly what the demand looks like. If I have this mouse and I go click on the sold comps on this exact model and I see that's got 100 sales in the last 90 days, cool. This is in demand. Let me go see if I can find this exact model. Then if I also search something else, I'm like, cool, this coffee mug, it's got 2 sales in the last 90 days. Not as much demand. Might be worth listing if it's a higher dollar item, but you want to try to focus on that turnover by getting high in demand products. And if you're just questioning, if you're brand new and you're questioning, how do I know what's in demand? How do I know what to buy? You have to go look at the data. You can literally on eBay, if you can go search any title, any brand, any keyword you want, if you know that, and this is going to be regional, up in the Northwest where I came from, we have an absurd amount of athletic wear. Nike headquarters is up there, massive Under Armour operation. We have tons of athletic wear up there. So when I started reselling in the early days, late 2015, early 16, I had no idea what I was doing, especially in the eBay world. So I had no idea what the value was on any of these things. So I would just go type in Nike shoes, men's, and start looking at the price points. Okay, I can see that a Nike Metcon used is worth like $40. And I can see that the new ones are selling for about 70 to 80. If I can go find them for 10 or 15, that's worth buying. And then same thing with Under Armour. There was one time where I walked into an Under Armour, they were 50% off the joggers. And we were still in wintertime. So the joggers, there was racks and racks of them. There were probably 4 or 5 full racks of these things, different colorways, red, blue, gray, green, etc. And I had no idea what the true value was on those. I knew that they were selling, I think they were $40 retail, half off would have made them 20. And I had no idea what they were worth online. So I simply just went and looked them up. That's as simple as it is. And I found that they were selling on Amazon for like 40 to 45. So I went and swiped like 3 or 4 racks clean. I bought hundreds of units because the data was right there in front of me. I didn't buy them just on a whim or just because I felt like they would sell. The data told me these are in demand by customers right now. So you want to make sure you are focusing on the different things that are per your region. So up there in the Northwest was very heavy Nike, tons of Nike shoes, athletic wear, etc. I get down here to Texas and all of a sudden I feel like a brand new seller again because I don't have access to hardly half, even 25% of the amount of athletic wear down here. Down here is way more just basic used shoes from just various brands I've never heard of. So when we moved down here, I felt like a brand new seller again. I had to learn all new kinds of shoe brands, and I had to learn how to look up non-athletic wear brands. So all of a sudden I'm not shopping Nike, Under Armour, Reebok, Hoka, etc. All of a sudden I'm having to shop like actual types of shirts and shoes and different things down here I never heard of. And then if you get over to, we talked about this on one of these calls last week, if you go over to Florida, y'all got access to tons of Disney stuff that none of us do. So you have to really focus on, okay, what's in my region? What do I have access to? When I'm looking at the Walmart and Amazon space here in Texas, I'm like, I've got a massive amount of Texas specific barbecue sauces, spices, different things that are south here that no one else has access to. So therefore, I might be able to open up wholesale accounts with different brands and scale something out of that. So really hone in on different types of actual products that you have access to that maybe not many people throughout the US do. Buy in demand items. That is one of the biggest 101s of reselling is you can't just buy and sell something because you got it cheap or you think it might sell. You just can't. You can try, you're going to end up with, like most of us, a death pile of stuff that's not worth listing, and then you're just staring at it every day, and it just slowly eats away up here. Focus on stuff that's actually moving, and usually they're not fancy, they're not fun, they're not sexy products. I have sold the most amount I've done on Walmart this year in like the 3 months I was hitting it hard. The most amount I did on Walmart was toothpaste and deodorant and trail cameras. No toys, no shoes. Like I sold some toys, but nothing near what I did with toothpaste and deodorant and like sprays. Boring stuff typically sells, guys. And the beautiful part about, you guys hear us talk about personal care categories in here all the time, and beauty is because they're replenishables oftentimes. These are products that customers are using within 30 days, and they're coming back on this platform of Amazon, Walmart, eBay, and they're going to buy it again. So, and if you can find consistent sources for these types of products, you're really never ever going to have a sourcing problem. You'll run out of money and time far before you run out of product, which is ultimately in this business the best situation you can be in, because then you can start to hire people to help you with shipping. Maybe you outsource to a prep center, different things you can do with that. Buy in demand products. It's probably going to be the boring stuff, groceries. Some of the largest sellers that I have worked with and I know sell groceries and personal care items. You would take one look at this and be like, oh, they posted on Instagram that they sold $20,000 of a SKU, but then you find out it was just toothpaste. Like, that's pretty damn boring. It's not Nike shoes and Kohl's socks and the fun stuff, but you got to find stuff that's in demand. Especially, I'm talking more so for the newer crew that might be watching this video. It's so easy just to go to garage sales and thrift stores and just buy stuff because it's cheap and you think it might sell for, if you buy it for $1, it might sell for 15 or 20. I can tell you from my 9 years of experience, and there's people in this group that have way more experience than I do. And we've all talked about these topics many times and we all agree at the same thing. You gotta get, if you can skip over that phase where you're just buying non demanding items, it's going to save you a lot of headache in the long run. So hopefully this got some wheels turning on that topic of maybe I should take a look at the stuff I'm buying, and maybe it's not selling just because it's not good product. Sometimes you can have a great photo, you can have a great title, a great listing, a great price, free shipping, free returns. You can have all of that. But if nobody wants to buy it, you're stuck with it. And so if your store feels like that, I urge you to go take an audit on your own store and just really look through that stuff and ask yourself, is this $12 shirt that's been listed for a year even worth keeping listing, or should I just donate it and move on? I can't tell you how freeing it is to literally take tons of old stale inventory and just donate it. You can use it as a tax write-off for as a loss, but more so, you get mental space and clarity back, and physical space too. It's so freeing. And some of you need to do that. For those of you that have those death piles, go through, and if you need to cherry pick out the stuff that's only worth 30 or more, that's what we've done with our own stuff, especially when we shut down our warehouse, which was 3,500 square feet. That 3,500 square feet gave me permission to go buy whatever the hell I wanted. And I would just throw it in a corner on shelves. And then when we shut that place down and we moved into 500 square feet in these two storage units we have, I don't have as much wiggle room and space anymore, which means I have to be very particular on the inventory that I'm buying. So what I did was I cherry picked anything out of the death pile that was not worth $30. I don't care the emotional attachment that I had to it. I don't care how well it might sell. If it wasn't worth $30 or more, I literally donated all of it. Hundreds of products just donated. The mental freedom that I gained from that was worth way more than any dollar amount that I donated. And I get to use that as a loss on my taxes at the end of the year. I spent a lot of time on that bullet point because it's one of the most important. Stop buying products that are not in demand. If you want a successful e-commerce business, you have to give customers what they're asking for. That's it. That's the name of the game. Last, also very important, number 5. This is where I might lose people because y'all hate it when I talk about this, but it's so true. A truth as to why you are not getting more sales or your business is not progressing the way that you want it to is the fact that you are not taking care of you. And that's a hard truth. That's the hardest truth over anything I just talked about. That's the hardest truth to face because it's the most personal level you can get. We can talk about business and listing and sourcing and products all day long. There's really no personal attachment to most of that. But if someone comes at you and says, like, hey, your business is struggling because you are struggling, that's going to hit home for some of you. I've had to have this conversation with myself, and Trista's been more than happy to have this conversation with me when it needs to happen because I've gone down some dark trails myself. Even as far as recently, for many months, I was in a dark hole, and Trista had to come in, you know, help pull me out. Took a while. You guys probably all saw it too, where I was MIA for months. We were in the middle of closing down a warehouse that failed for that business model that we were doing. We were in the middle of going back and forth to Oregon because that one was struggling for a minute. And our own reselling accounts just completely fell apart because we didn't put any focus or consistency on them for years. And all of a sudden, I had to face the hard truth of why is all of this happening at the same time for the same 3 months in a row? And I allowed myself to get into a pretty dark place. That's why I pulled away from everything. I was not that active on Instagram. You guys didn't see me much here in Discord. I'm sure on Zoom calls, if you go back and watch some of those Zoom calls, I was not in a healthy mental space. And you can see that in the way I speak, the way I look. The mental clarity was just not there. So I'm looking at everything falling apart all around me in the business sense. And of course, I'm like in business mindset, like business wise, what can I do to make things better? And then I had to literally look myself in the mirror and be like, dude, it's you. Your business is struggling because you are struggling. So immediately cut out the booze, start eating healthier, cut out as much junk food, start exercising again, even if it's just a 15-minute walk in the mornings. I tell you what, a morning walk possibly could have been the biggest change I made in my daily life that had the most dramatic impact on everything. Just 20 or 30-minute walk made such a deep impact. I cannot even put into words because that it's not the walk itself. It's the fact that I would wake up in the morning and made a choice to do something for me and I stayed consistent with it. It's a daily choice that I made. And because of doing that choice, I started to be more awake in the mornings. I wasn't just groggy and sleeping until 9 a.m. I was able to get up at 7, 7:30, have mental clarity, go do my walk, come back to the house, sit down here at the computer and be like, all right, Let's do this. I feel good. That domino affected into, okay, let's start doing some real workouts again. So built a home gym here in the garage, and I have no excuse now. And I'm able to get out there, commit to a 30, 45-minute workout a couple days a week. And then that turned into 3 days a week, 4 days a week. I'm back up to 5, 6 days a week out there, paired with drinking less, drinking more water, eating better. I'm not saying just eat chicken salad all day, every day, right? If you follow the basic 80/20 rule, like 80% whole foods and 20% eat whatever you want. If you just clean a little bit of this up, a few things happen. And you notice not once have I mentioned weight loss or the scale, because that part doesn't matter. What matters is doing these healthy habits is what has allowed me to get my energy back, to get my confidence back, and I feel like myself again. And when I feel like myself, I'm able to present my best version of me to my wife, to my kids, to my businesses, to you guys as our community. Y'all probably don't like it if I get up here on Zoom call. I'm like, all right, what do you guys want to talk about? I don't feel good. Not too fun, right? You guys probably enjoy it when it's like, Chaz is on his A game today. He's bringing some energy, he's bringing some vibes because I feel that good again. That took multiple months to get my ass out of that rut that I was in, out of that dark hole, climbed out, and here's where I am today. Not anywhere where I want to be, but I'm in a better position than I was. And I say all of this to wrap it up into your business might be struggling because you are struggling. You are going to be the ceiling, the glass ceiling, if you will, to any part of your business. If you don't feel well, you're not going to do well. You go out there and find any major successful CEO that feels like garbage. Typically, you hear the same trends amongst most of them. They have a morning routine, they're exercising, they're eating well, they're taking care of themselves. You are a glass ceiling to yourself. And the better you feel, the higher that ceiling is. Unless you have these CEOs that magically have so much money, they hire everyone around them to do everything in their life, it's going to be really tough to build a larger, successful business for you if you just don't feel well. There's something about making a conscious decision every day to take care of you. And I heard someone say, I don't remember what the exact quote was last week, and it stuck so hard because it's the way I've always thought. And someone else like solidified this is an okay way to think. I don't believe when people say, and I used to fall victim of this, I don't believe anymore when people are like, oh, I have a bad habit. No, you have a bad choice. If you have habits that you're calling bad habits and you can't get rid of them, that is a daily conscious decision. That is a choice you are making to partake with that habit, whatever it is. If you are sleeping till 9 a.m. every day and then you're groggy and you really don't hit your energy until noon, that's a daily choice. You choose what time to wake up in the morning, unless you have kids, then different story. But hopefully, you guys understand where I'm getting at. You can choose to wake up 30 minutes earlier and go do a 15-minute walk and read for 15 minutes. Or you can choose to get up 30 minutes earlier and meal prep healthy food options for the day rather than just rushing out of the house because you overslept and then you go and grab garbage food for lunch and then you feel like trash for the rest of the day. You pig out at night and then you fall asleep. I've been there. I've done that more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. And it sucks. It's a very bad pattern to be in. But ultimately, the habits that you have like that in life, they are choices you make. And these are hard truths that I have had to open up and just accept myself. It's not that I'm pointing any blame towards anyone. These are literally habits and choices I had to make myself. Trista can back me up on these. She's the first person that will catch when I'm making these daily choices and I feel like shit and nothing's getting done. And all of a sudden, everything around us is struggling and the businesses are all falling apart. It's because typically I'm not at my A game. Everyone and everything deserves your A game. And if you are months and months and months deep on being in a rut, not being on your A game, not feeling well, that's on you. And that's why I titled this call Five Hard Truths, because there's no sugarcoating it. I posted a quote on Twitter earlier and Instagram, which is nothing changes if nothing changes. If you're spinning on the same wheel that you always do every day, you're going to keep getting the same thing you've been getting. So if your eBay store, your Walmart store, your Amazon store, Shopify, whatever type of business you are running, if it's not producing the results that you want, look at the choices that you're making every day, aka habits. And if you say like, well, I've got a bad habit of just saying I'm going to list those 5 items and then I don't. That's not a habit, that's a choice. You choose to do the work or you choose to skip the work. You choose to procrastinate. These are not things that accidentally happen to you. No one accidentally ate 10,000 extra calories this week. That's a choice that happens. If you feel like garbage because you haven't drank water until 3 p.m., that didn't accidentally happen. You choose to carry a water bottle with you and drink your water. Little things like this. They're daily choices, and a lot of them are not choices that take a lot of time or effort. Does it take a lot of time to list 3 things on eBay every day? No, that's like 15 minutes. If you commit to 50, if for those of you eBay people, especially if you're brand new and you're like, I don't even like, I've only done a couple $100 in sales, or you haven't had any sales yet, 15 minutes a day can put your business on a trajectory of success. 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day of just waking up a little earlier, drinking water, and going for a 15-minute walk. 15 minutes a day can change your trajectory of your mental health, your physical health. That morning slot, I've always been such a massive fan of some type of morning routine that involves, if you have kids, I'm sorry, but you got to wake up before they do. Like I've fallen into this rut lately with I'm still working out, but the problem is I've been putting it off until the afternoon. And by 4 or 5 o'clock, man, like most of you, like I'm shot. I have a hard time like physically pushing myself in a workout if I'm tired. And especially when it's days where I'm like back to back Zoom calls, like I'm mentally just I'm drained. So I have a really difficult time pushing myself to my limits in the garage gym if I don't feel that great. So I'm having to recommit to something I did last year, which I did not want to go back to, but I have no choice. It's getting up before the kids, and we homeschool. We have a hybrid setup. There's a private school they go to. They alternate, but they're basically Monday through Thursday. One of them is going to school at 8:30. So I have to get up earlier again, which I did not want to do. But I know that when I look at last year, when I was in the best shape I've ever been in mentally and physically, I was 20 pounds lighter. I did like 12, 13, 14 Spartan races throughout the year. Like I was on, man, I was on my A game. And I started looking at my habits, my choices I was choosing back then. I was up at 5 a.m. every day, non-negotiable, 6 days a week. I got up when I was tired. I went into the gym when I was sick. That was not a good choice, but I still did it. I was committed. There's a difference between being committed to something and just being interested in doing something. So a lot of people are like, I'm interested in getting in shape, but they're not committed to doing the activities. So for me last year, the best I ever felt, even though I don't like getting up that early, I don't need to get up at 5 this time. I'm recommitting to getting up at 6 so that by 7:30, I am done with my workout. I've done 10 or 15 minutes of reading a personal development book. I have showered, and then I can get the kids up and we can all get ready for the day and then move on. And then by 4 or 5 o'clock, I don't have this mental stress of like, oh, I still got to do a workout and I'm tired. By 4 or 5 o'clock, I've already done everything I need to for the day. And then I can make dinner for the fam and then we can chill and have a nice evening. Rather than get done with my workout at 6:30 or 7, we have a late dinner. By time I'm showered up and everyone's ready to go, it's already bedtime. So I'm looking at these results that have happened in my life and I'm asking myself what do I have control over that can make a better result. And a lot of it for me boils down to getting up early and having a morning routine back in place. Because I found that over these last 6 to 8 months when I've struggled these last 6 to 8 months more than I have in my entire life. It was a very dark 6 months that was pretty under the radar. And a lot of it stemmed down to the fact that I had no morning routine. I had no routine whatsoever. I had no morning routine. My kids, my wife got like whatever energy I did have, they got. And then by the time I got to the business stuff, I'm like fried before noon, really struggled getting any type of productive work done. And then I come into like Instagram or the Discord or do a Zoom call and I'm just mentally fried. Hard for me to be able to provide for you guys or provide for the business or the family. So I've learned to really open my eyes up to the fact that I need to take care of me. And that's going to directly impact everything else. That's why I wanted to end with that one. The hardest truth to accept is the fact that you are where you are because of you and your choices. And that's a tough one. And I say this all with this in mind too. It doesn't take any drastic choices or drastic new habits to have impactful results. I told you this a little bit ago. The biggest impact thing that I changed in my life was recommitting to waking up 30 minutes early and doing a 20-minute walk first thing in the morning before the kids are getting ready for school or before we're doing breakfast time and all that. I just need 20 minutes to myself to get outside to walk. That for you might look like 20 minutes of yoga, 20 minutes of reading, sitting down and writing down your schedule for the day, like doing something just to be able to lift yourself up for the day has such an impactful result and it doesn't take much time. 15 or 20 minutes every single morning, whatever that looks like for you. That was the biggest habit that I changed and it created the domino effect to everything else. I didn't just jump back into 6 workouts per week. I would have died. If I woke up, and I've been back on my A game for like 6 weeks now, 4 to 6 weeks, feeling really good. 3 months ago, 4 months ago, when I was not doing so well and I was in a dark place, if I woke up and tried to do the schedule and the workouts that I did a year ago, I would have physically died. So I did not jump back into everything full bore, which is the same thing I'm telling you guys. You don't need to jump into anything. Just start making little adjustments. 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there can make a drastic impact. If you're an eBay seller and you wake up and just commit to a 15-minute walk first thing in the morning just to set your mind right, drink some extra water, and then later in the day you commit to 15 minutes to list 3 new items on eBay and you do that Monday through Friday, holy shit, watch what happens to your life. Little tiny choices like that over time compound. If you haven't read the book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, highly recommend it. It's this whole concept of it doesn't take big drastic changes and things to have big results. You'll have way more consistent long-term results committing to small activities. And that compound effect happens. And man, does it feel good to feel good. Because now I can host Zoom calls. I did a Zoom call right before this for an hour and a half. I came into this feeling completely fine. 3 months ago, one a day, that's all I can mentally handle. And I would be plucked out. Y'all ever been in a meetup or a group setting and after about 2 hours, the wave happens, they call it the wave. Your face kind of goes blank and someone's talking at you and you're like nodding along, but nothing is registering. I would have quite a few days that were very much like that. But now I'm on the other side where I've been consistent with better choices in life. I'm about 6 weeks deep on these choices, and I can finally say, like, I feel good again. I don't feel great. I'm not where I want to be, but I feel really good. And I want more people to feel what this feels like because it means you have more energy. You're more productive. When you do the business stuff, you do the business stuff. You're not procrastinating as much. I don't know about y'all, but I've been diagnosed extreme ADHD, and that means I have a hard time focusing. But I tell you what, when I focus on my healthier habits and I feel good like I do now, I have a much easier time saying, okay, here's my task. I'm going to slide my phone away from me. Notifications are off. All my tabs are closed down. I have one tab open on the one thing I'm working on, and I can focus for an hour straight and get that thing done. And then I can move on to the next. Versus if I don't feel well and my ADHD is all flared up, like I can't focus on anything and I'm all over the place. That's why I want to end with that one. You've got to take care of you. I've been saying this quote for what, Ron, 6, 7, 8 years now. If you feel your best, you give your best.
100%.
That's it. And you can literally not listen to any of the other businessy things I talked about on this call. If you just focus on the one thing I just talked about, which is focus on you, as you feel better, your business will get better. I literally can promise it. That's as simple as it gets. So, with that being said, that concludes my 5 hard truths of why you aren't getting more sales. But really, this is just 5 hard truths that I have had to accept in my own life as to why my business was struggling the most. And when I start to fine tune and fix these 5 things, especially that last one, taking care of me, man, you hit that point and like, you guys have probably all felt what this feels like, where things are going so well and you just catch yourself being so grateful in a moment. You're like, okay, I'm in a really good spot right now. I got to keep this momentum going. Versus the opposite, which I have also felt many times, which is like, wow, life is trying to beat me down. And that's a rough spot to be in. It's going to ebb and flow, by the way. You don't just fix all of these and magically you're just month over month, just growing and doing better. Life has funny ways of like, you'll have a couple good months and then you'll get smacked down. Then you'll get back on a couple of good months and then you get smacked down. That's just the ebbs and flows of how this whole lifestyle goes, especially when you are a business owner. It is rarely going to be month over month better and better and better. Year over year on a graph might look like it's going up, but if you zoom into the daily, weekly, monthly, it's a lot of up and then down, up and then down. Over time, you're going up year over year, but it's a lot of up and down. So, my last little side point is if you're mentally exhausted and stressing over your lack of sales or struggle points, zoom out. It's easy to get caught up in the daily, especially if you've got a family and a job and responsibilities in life. Before you even look at your business, it's so easy to get caught up in the daily or even the weekly or even the monthly. Or and us as humans, we focus on negatives way more than we focus on positives. I can post a YouTube video and it will get 100 thumbs up. And I'm like, cool. If it gets 1 thumbs down, I'm like, oh my gosh, who didn't like me? What did I say wrong? We as humans focus on the negatives. You can walk into a room with 1,000 people that love you to death. If one person hates you, you're going to focus on that one person. It's funny how that works, right? And we all do it. It's just a human nature to focus on those negatives. So that's my last little side tip is zoom out. A lot of stuff that you're stressing over, you probably have no control over. The daily, the weekly, the monthly. And those are hard truths to accept. Those are the hardest truths I've had to accept, especially when I look myself in the mirror. Because I've now had to just fully grasp and accept the fact that I am where I am, good or bad, because of me. My habits, my consistency, my choices have led me exactly to where I am today, the same way they have with you. So you got to take care of yourself. That's the name of the game. That domino affects everything else. You pair that with being consistent and feeling good, then you can really start to just hammer on the business side. Okay, now I'm going to do better photos. Now I'm going to do better listings, titles. You know what? I'm going to start sourcing a little bit more consistently instead of going out every now and then or when I feel like it. I'm going to commit to, like, you know what? Fridays are sourcing days, non negotiable. I don't care if I want to or not. Those are sourcing days. Monday through Friday, 3 eBay listings a day. I don't care how I feel. I don't care if I want to. It's only 15 minutes. Get it done. When you feel good, then you can start to hammer on that stuff and be way more productive than if you're trying to hammer on it when you just don't feel well.